What? Are you serious? You're working as a doctor out in the middle of nowhere. In a place like that. It's probably all just old folks, right? You know, I always wondered if doctors in those rundown clinics even have real medical licenses. Maybe you're just a quack doctor, aren't you? I bet you're doing more caregiving than actual medical work. It had been 20 years since I last saw Richard, a classmate from med school, and we met again at a medical conference. Richard is the son of the director of S General Hospital in New York. And even back in school, he would constantly mock us for being poor and always look down on us. Suddenly, Richard's expression turned serious as he leaned in close to me and whispered in my ear, "By the way, are you really a doctor? I remember hearing that you had to drop out of med school because you couldn't afford the tuition. You're not some kind of fake doctor or criminal, are you? Sure, the medical treatments I can offer in a small rural clinic are limited, but calling me a quack or a fraud is going too far." At that moment, Richard's father happened to pass by and, seeing the situation, his face went pale as he shouted at Richard, "Who do you think you're talking to like that? He is," and then revealed my true identity. Hello everyone. Welcome to Revenge Office. Today I'm going to share a new story with you. Let's get started. My name is Chris Jones. I have a younger brother named Charles. Our parents passed away when we were young, and from then on, our grandparents raised us. Life wasn't easy, and we struggled financially. But they always made sure we never went hungry and gave us all the love they could. Whenever the clock struck 3, I'd remember my grandmother standing in the kitchen, making fresh apple pie, and that sweet smell lingers in my memory to this day. However, at school, my classmates often picked on me for being poor and not dressed as nicely as everyone else. Charles, especially, was often teased because he was smart, and every time I would stand in front of him, doing my best to protect him. "Hey, why don't you try solving this math problem? If smart little Jonasy is doing it, it'll be a piece of cake, right? I don't know what this says." Charles was struggling in front of some nonsense calculation scribbled by our classmates, while they laughed and enjoyed watching him squirm. "Hey, what are you guys doing to Charles?" The classmates turned around, startled. "Oh no, Charles's big brother is here. Run, run." They all bolted away as fast as they could. Charles crouched down, tears welling up as he hung his head low. "Charles, big brother, I know. Don't cry anymore, okay?" I crouched down next to him, waiting patiently for him to stop crying. I never talked to my grandparents about what happened at school, but in this small rural town, I'm sure they had a feeling something was going on. Sometimes they would glance at us with concern, but they never asked questions and just greeted us warmly when we came home. Then, one day, while we were having breakfast as usual, Grandpa suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed. "Grandpa, Grandpa, Grandpa, can you hear me?" But Grandpa didn't respond, lying still on the floor. Grandma rushed to the phone and dialed 911. She frantically explained Grandpa's name, that he was unresponsive, and begged for help to come quickly. "Big brother, it'll be okay, Charles." As I hugged Charles's trembling shoulders on the verge of tears, I held back my own. "Yes, that's right. He's unconscious. The address is in Duncan Village." "What? You can't come right away, please. You have to hurry." Grandma gripped the phone tightly, pleading desperately for them to come quickly. We overheard that, being in the mountains, it would take more than 30 minutes for an ambulance to arrive. I looked at Charles's face. Gone was the teary expression from earlier, and I could tell he was thinking the same thing as me. Without hesitation, we ran out of the house and sprinted toward the town doctor. It was the middle of winter. Even though the mornings often dropped below freezing at this time of year, we were barefoot in sandals, running without a second thought. "Doctor, doctor, are you here? Doctor." We pounded on the door of the only clinic in town as hard as we could. Suddenly, the door swung open and an elderly man in a white coat appeared. He was the only doctor in the area. He looked at us with a frown. "Grandpa collapsed. They said it would take more than 30 minutes for the ambulance to get here. So please, doctor, help him. Please help him." But the doctor, without a change in expression, replied bluntly, "I see. That's unfortunate. I'd really love to help, but I'm busy conducting health checkups for some very important people today. I don't have time for this." Then, the doctor's expression changed, as if he were looking at something disgusting. "Sorry, but poor folks have to wait now. Go home." With that, he shut the door. I kept banging on the door, but it never opened again. "Big brother." I stood there glaring at the door until Charles called out to me. We walked back home slowly. "We're home." But there was no response like usual. I had a bad feeling, so I headed to the bedroom. "Grandma." In front of me, Grandpa lay in bed, covered with a white sheet. Beside him, Grandma sat with her head down, as if time had stopped around her. Grandpa, he didn't make it. It felt unreal that just a short while ago, we were all sitting together, enjoying a family meal. "Grandpa, I'm sorry. Grandma, I'm sorry." I remembered the unfair words from the town doctor and was overwhelmed with shame for not being able to do anything. I fought hard to hold back my tears. Charles's grip on my hand tightened even more. The next day, a small funeral was held. Grandpa was such a kind person. He would often share our already scarce food with the neighbors or bring them vegetables from the garden. "Those who are struggling should help each other," was Grandpa's favorite saying. Naturally, the neighbors adored Grandpa, and they helped with the funeral preparations and took care of the guests. Charles and I, however, said nothing and just stared at Grandpa's picture. After Grandpa's first memorial service, life in the Jones household gradually began to return to normal. Big brother. On our way home from elementary school, we kicked stones as we walked. "What is it, Charles?" "Hey, hi." Charles fidgeted, looking like he wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. In the meantime, the stone we were kicking disappeared somewhere. "Big brother, I want to be a doctor." "What? A doctor?" I was caught off guard by the sudden declaration, but Charles's face was serious. "I'm sad that Grandpa passed away, but what hurt me even more was when that doctor said poor people have to wait. Since then, I've been thinking, if only I could have helped. That's why I want to be someone who can help people, whether they're rich or poor." Charles said it with such conviction that I no longer saw the crybaby he used to be. "That's really cool. If you're going to be a doctor, then I'll be one too." Somehow, I felt that if I were with Charles, I could also become a doctor. A strange but undeniable confidence welled up inside me. And just like that, I decided to pursue becoming a doctor for a simple reason. From then on, we pushed each other and focused on our studies. After graduating from elementary school, we attended a middle school down in the valley. And while our classmates went into town to hang out, we spent our time at the library, studying until it closed. Even though we studied together, the truth is, Charles taught me most of the time. Charles was always at the top of our class, keeping his grades high. "Sorry, man, you're always helping me, and it must be hard for you to focus." "Don't worry about it. Teaching you helps me learn too and deepens my understanding. Maybe I'm just cut out for teaching." With that mindset, Charles and I devoted most of our student years to studying, eventually getting into the top-ranked high school in the state. 3 years of hard work paid off, and we both got accepted into a state university's medical school. We managed the entrance fees and tuition with the little money Grandpa had left us and with scholarships. But we still needed to work to make ends meet. So, I quickly started a part-time job at a beer bar. Balancing work and studying was more difficult than I had imagined, and I ended up cutting back on sleep to focus on my studies. Charles, using his intelligence, took up a job as a tutor. Medical school was full of kids from doctor families, so we, being poor, stood out quite a bit. However, most of our classmates didn't care and treated us normally. Sometimes they even treated us to meals or helped us with tricky problems in lectures. And I was thrilled to finally enjoy college life. It felt like spring had finally come for us. The studying was tough. But with Charles and our friends, we encouraged each other, believing that the path to becoming doctors was gradually opening up. That is, until the tragedy struck. All right, now take a deep breath. Exhale slowly. That's it. I placed the stethoscope on the woman's rounded back, listening intently to make sure I didn't miss any slight irregularities. All right, you're good to go. Thank you. She adjusted her clothes and slowly sat down in the chair, moving with the same pace as someone my grandmother's age. Your heart sounds good, and there don't seem to be any issues. You can return to your normal routine from today, but don't push yourself. If anything happens, come see me right away. Take care. Thank you. I feel so reassured knowing you're here. Seeing her relieved expression made me feel at ease too. After she left the exam room with her relaxed steps, I continued with filling out medical records and paperwork. By the time I finally took a breath, the surroundings had already started to grow dark. Now, Charles and I work at a small clinic deep in the mountains, in a remote village. To be honest, the clinic is pretty run down. The building looks old, and the letters on the sign are so faded they're hard to read. But the rich nature and the warmth of the people here remind me of the small rural town where we grew up. And I've come to really like it. The mountains visible from the exam room window always help calm my mind. Got everything. As I adjusted to wearing a suit I wasn't used to, Charles, almost like a spouse, fussed over helping me prepare for the day. I glanced quickly inside my black leather bag. Yeah, everything's good, perfect. How many years has it been since you last went to New York? Since that time, I guess I've lost track. I was busy preparing all morning to attend a conference in New York today. The only thing weighing on my mind was having to close the clinic, but there was an important reason I couldn't miss this event. All right, I'm heading out. Be safe. Don't forget to bring me back a souvenir. Okay, take care of yourself while I'm gone. Yeah, thanks. With a bit of an ease, I boarded the bus heading to New York. As I stepped off the bus, the hustle and bustle of the city caught me off guard. It had been a while since I'd been here. I made my way to the conference, which was packed with people. I greeted some of my old professors from university and enjoyed chatting with my classmates, soaking in the lively atmosphere. Suddenly, I noticed a group of people walking toward me, grinning widely. Hey, long time no see. Oh, long time, yeah. You look well, still playing doctor. Yeah, I'm still at it. The condescending tone came from Richard Davis, a classmate from med school. Richard is the son of the director at S University Hospital, a big general hospital often used as a filming location for medical dramas. Coming from such a privileged background, he never missed a chance to mock us for being poor and from the countryside. I remember one time during med school when I was writing a report in the campus library. Charles and I had planned to grab lunch together. And since Charles had already submitted his report, he sat next to me, reading while he waited. That's when Richard swooped in, like a predator spotting prey. "You two are pretty serious, huh?" he said, trying to peek at my computer screen. "Yeah, well, the lectures are tough with all the medical jargon. I'm just trying to keep up." "Well, I don't think poor country kids like you, with no connections, will ever make it as doctors, boy." I looked up, shocked at what he said. I glared hard at Richard, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he shifted his attention to my brother. "Your little brother seems smart, but no matter how much he reads, you can still see the poverty on him. Isn't that strange?" Richard reached to grab the book Charles was reading, but Charles deftly dodged him. Annoyed by Charles's quick reaction, Richard's insults escalated. "Enough. You guys were born different. Even if you become doctors, you'll just be small-town nobodies." "Poor doctors? Yeah, you should do yourself a favor and get on my good side now. Maybe I'll hire you as a janitor at the university hospital." I was about to retort, filled with anger, but Charles stretched out his hand, signaling me to stop. I bit my tongue and lowered my gaze back to my report, completely shutting Richard out of my mind. Charles, unfazed, immersed himself in his book again. Seeing that we weren't reacting, Richard clicked his tongue and finally left. Talking to Richard brought back memories of all the times he had toyed with us in the past, and I started feeling more and more uncomfortable. I wanted to leave, but Richard wasn't done yet, clinging on and refusing to let me go. "I'm working at my dad's university hospital, you know. We're at the cutting edge of medicine. You're nothing compared to me, coming from poverty." He fiddled with his hair, clearly wanting to boast. "By the way, Chris, where are you working?" "I'm working as a doctor at a clinic in a mountain village called Kangol Village." Richard's face lit up with amusement. "What? Kangol Village? Where's that? What state is it in? Even I've never heard of such a place." "Just like in our student days," he continued to mock me. "A place like that must only have old folks coming in, right? I've always wondered if doctors in those rundown clinics even have real medical licenses. You might just be a quack doctor. Maybe you're doing more caregiving than actual medical work." Richard's insults didn't stop. Suddenly, he leaned in close, his expression turning serious, and whispered in my ear. "By the way, are you really a doctor? I heard you had to drop out of med school because you couldn't afford the tuition. You're not a fake doctor or something, are you? Not involved in any criminal stuff, right?" His eyes narrowed mischievously, and his group, which had quietly gathered, started joining in on the mockery. At that moment, an unexpected voice interrupted. "Chris, is that you? How's your brother doing?" "Thanks to you, he's doing well. I really appreciate it." It was Richard's father, the director of S University Hospital, who had happened to walk by and greeted me. "Wait, Dad, how do you know this small-town quack doctor?" Hearing Richard's use of the word quack, the director's previously cheerful face turned pale. "What did you just say? Do you even know who you're talking to?" "What? Who? This guy dropped out of med school because he was broke. I don't even know how he became a small-town quack doctor." "Are you an idiot?" The director's voice, filled with fury, was directed at Richard. The sheer intensity of it caused everyone around us to stop and stare. Chris graduated top of his class from Harvard Medical School. He's an incredibly brilliant doctor. "What? Harvard?" Richard froze, shocked by the unexpected truth. The growing crowd around us started to buzz with murmurs as the revelation spread. The story then goes back to our med school days. That day in the library, after Richard's barrage of insults, I couldn't focus on my report and had to finish it the next day. As Charles and I walked to a restaurant, I was still fuming. "That Richard? He thinks he can mock us just because his dad's the hospital director." "Yeah, Some people just think it's okay to look down on others to feel superior. But still, he insulted you too. I won't forgive that. Charles, however, didn't seem bothered at all and said, "Come on, let him talk." "I don't care instead. Let's work hard and become doctors that'll shut them up for good." Charles wrapped his arm around my shoulder with the biggest smile. Then it happened. Watch out. By the time I heard that voice, I was already on the ground at the side of the road. "Charles." I frantically looked around for him. About 5 meters ahead of where I had fallen, there was an overturned truck. Underneath it, I could see pants and shoes that I recognized. "Charles, are you okay? I've called an ambulance. Are you hurt anywhere?" My brother, he's under the truck." That's all I managed to say before I completely fainted. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. Apparently, I had passed out from the shock. Witnesses said that while we were walking, a truck had come speeding toward us from behind. Luckily, I only suffered minor bruises. But Charles had thrown himself in front of the truck to protect me and took the full impact, hitting his body hard. Although he survived, the trauma caused brain damage, and he was left paralyzed. His dream of becoming a doctor was gone forever. I blamed myself. Why did Charles have to go through this? If I had taken his place, none of this would have happened. But Charles, determined to snap me out of my guilt, said, "Big brother, you need to study hard and become a doctor for both of us. You haven't forgotten what that town doctor did to Grandpa, right? I want you to become a doctor so great that you can show up people like him and Richard." "Me? No, I can't. I've always been following in your footsteps. The only reason I wanted to be a doctor was because you wanted to be one. Why did this happen to you? It should have been me. It should have been." "Stop it, brother. I'm glad I was able to protect you. When we were kids, you always stood up for me against the bullies. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be who I am today, so please, do this for both of us." Charles's eyes were wet with tears. I realized he was hiding his pain, trying to encourage me in his own way. I couldn't let this defeat me. From that moment on, I became a different person, throwing myself into my studies like never before. I studied hard for school, and at the same time, I researched everything I could to figure out how to help Charles recover. But with current medical knowledge, it's difficult to find a way to heal Charles's body. Isn't there any way to cure him? Yet, in the environment I was in, it was nearly impossible to acquire the knowledge or techniques needed. That thought consumed me. Whether I was carrying glasses at the beer bar or chatting with friends, it never left my mind. And then, I made up my mind. I decided to drop out of the medical school I was in, where I had worked so hard to get in, and go to Harvard. Alone to start over at Harvard University. In an unfamiliar environment, I fought to keep up. Sometimes I faced unfair treatment simply because I'm from the countryside. But my strong goal of curing Charles always kept me going. As a result, I graduated top of my class from Harvard University. I spent another 4 years in the grad school, rapidly absorbing advanced medical knowledge. As a neurosurgeon, I worked at various hospitals across America, eagerly taking on and successfully performing difficult surgeries. Several decades after that, my surgical skills gained recognition across Europe, and I even received offers from top-tier hospitals there. However, still thinking about Charles, I decided to return to the US. After landing in my homeland for the first time in years, I visited the medical school I had once attended, as I had some business there. That's when I unexpectedly ran into someone from my past. "Oh, Chris, it's been a long time. I heard you were back here, but I didn't expect to see you. I've heard about all your accomplishments. As a fellow countryman, I'm proud of you." "It's been a while, Director. I appreciate the praise, but honestly, I'm just doing my best for the patients in front of me." The director paused for a moment, seemingly deep in thought, and then asked, "So Chris, where are you working now?" "I've only been back for about a week, so I'm still figuring things out." Then, to my surprise, the director made an unexpected proposal. "If you're interested, how about coming to work at our hospital? We'd welcome you with special condition, of course." I was caught off guard by the offer. Holding on to a specific goal, I decided to take a risk and speak up. "Thank you very much. I'd be honored, but if you can agree to my conditions, I'll handle all the difficult surgeries. What do you think?" The conditions were these. First, I wanted to perform Charles's surgery at S University. It's a highly complicated surgery, but I intended to operate myself. Second, I wanted to ensure that Charles could undergo rehabilitation in a comfortable environment. Given the complexity of the surgery, the rehab process would be long, and I wanted Charles to recover in a setting that wouldn't cause him additional stress. The director listened to my request and fell into deep thought. And then, "All right, I accept all your conditions. We'll have you handle the difficult surgeries as much as possible. Of course, we'll provide full support on our end," the director said, smiling. And so, I became a neurosurgeon at S University Hospital, performing and succeeding in numerous difficult operations. As a result, I earned complete trust within the hospital and finally decided to proceed with Charles's highly complex surgery. Even I was nervous. What if something went wrong? But I had overcome countless challenges before. "I'll be fine. I will succeed." With tension in the air, I held the scalpel for several hours. Charles's surgery was a complete success, and his post-operative recovery was confirmed to be going well, thanks to the director's arrangements. I began working as a doctor at a small clinic in the remote village of Kangol, while also overseeing Charles's rehabilitation in a peaceful environment. Now, I lead a quiet life, caring for the villagers' health and watching over Charles as he steadily recovers through rehab. No way, you're telling me Chris performed all those difficult surgeries, but anyone could lie about graduating from Harvard, right? I'd like to see some proof if it's really true," Richard said, even now trying to discredit me. "You're still saying things like that. Listen, Chris is giving the main presentation at today's conference. It's about the surgery he performed on his brother. Just thinking about how many more patients will be saved because of this brings tears to my eyes." While the director was clearly moved, Richard's suspicious expression only deepened. Suddenly, the director pointed at Richard. "Richard, you lack the awareness required to be a doctor. You'd better listen to today's presentation. If you think you can just sleep through it, you're gravely mistaken." Richard flinched, clearly hit by the remark. "If you want, you should observe one of Chris's surgeries next time. He's incredible. You're not even close to his level. Take this opportunity to learn." "What? But I'm destined to become a professor." "Are you an idiot?" the director continued, exasperated. "Who said you'd become a professor? I want Chris to take over for me, and the arrangements have already been made." "What? No way." Richard collapsed, visibly shocked as the future he'd imagined crumbled before his eyes. "Director, about that?" I started, but the director cut me off. "If you join us, Chris, countless people will be saved. People accuse me of being money-driven, and I don't care about that. Sure, more surgeries mean more money, but a hospital that only thinks about money will eventually fail." After clearing his throat, the director locked eyes with me. "In the end, what really matters is having a hospital that can save patients who seemed beyond hope. That's what I truly believe from the bottom of my heart." Hearing the director's deeply held conviction moved me. But immediately, Charles's face came to mind.
You don't need to give me an answer right away. Take your time to think about it.
Yes, I'll talk it over with my brother and get back to you, I greeted as I spoke. Richard, you're standing a bit too close. Shut up. I don't have time for this. Lately, this has been his attitude, and I find it a bit annoying. My presentation at the conference was a great success. Since then, the reputation of S University Hospital has been steadily improving. Another thing has also changed the way people around me act. Richard, who had constantly insulted and belittled me, now follows me around like a shadow. Whenever something comes up, he makes sure to say, "Hey, I'm going to be the next professor. There's no way I'm losing to a guy with a fake-sounding career like yours. I'll steal all the techniques you learned in Harvard." Lately, his persistence has become a little tiresome. Richard may have a foul mouth and a big ego, but he's got guts. Since I have no interest in becoming a professor, I sincerely hope he channels that energy into becoming a good doctor. As for Charles, since the operation, he has improved steadily day by day. While he still has some paralysis, he has recovered to the point where he can live a normal life. Now, he's using his experience to work as a rehabilitation trainer, supporting our clinic. Before, we could only provide examinations, and follow-up care wasn't always sufficient. But now, with the added rehabilitation services, we can provide personalized care, taking into account each patient's condition. This has been a big hit with the villagers, and the clinic quickly became very popular. The clinic is always full, and since I can't handle all the patients on my own, doctors from S University Hospital now rotate in weekly to help. Next week, we're starting the renovation of the clinic. Soon, no one will be calling it a rundown clinic anymore. I feel like I've finally honored my grandparents' wishes. There's no difference between the poor and the rich when it comes to life. As a doctor, I fought hard to save as many lives as possible. Every time I stood at the operating table, I felt with deep conviction that all people are equal in the face of life. Moving forward, I want to continue saving those in front of me with this belief in mind.
It's 9 a.m. Once again, the clinic is filled with people in need of care today.